we've already covered the age of the Earth as one piece of counter-evidence to young Earth creationism. So today, we will cover the age of the universe. As you might already know, the American astronomer Edwin Hubble discovered in the late 1920s that the universe was 14 billion years old. How did he learn this? Well, he looked into his telescope one day, and he noticed that the farthest galaxies were not only 14 billion light years away, but also traveling farther and farther away from us. Now, don't let the word year and the term light year fool you. A light year is a measure of distance, not time. A light year is simply the amount of distance that light can travel in a single year. The speed of light is exactly 299,792,458 meters per second. So let's just do some math to figure out how far light can travel in 1 year. Now, 299 792 400 458 meters per second times 60 seconds equals 17,987,547,480 meters per minute. Okay, this is 1 light minute. Now, when you multiply this number by 60 minutes, the answer is 1 trillion 79 billion 252 million 848,000 800 meters per hour. Now let's multiply this number by 24. The answer is 25 trillion 902 billion 68,000,000 371,200 meters per day. So that is 1 light day. Now, when you multiply this by 360 1965, you realize that the answer is exactly 488,000 meters per year. So you see, light travels exactly 9,254,955,488,000 meters per year. That is trillions of kilometers per year. Can you imagine how far that is? And yet, it took the light of the farthest galaxies 14 billion light years to reach our telescopes. 1 light year is far enough. So we would have to add just way too many numerals if we calculated simply in terms of meters. No, we just have to use light years in order to save space on our scratch paper. So 14 billion light years is the distance between us and the farthest galaxies. Since it took the light from those galaxies 14 billion years to reach us, this means that the universe is at least 14 billion years old. However, the farthest galaxies are also moving away from us. And this raises another important question. If the galaxies are moving away from us, why couldn't we see them with the very first telescope we ever invented? I mean, after all, if the galaxies were right in front of us 14 billion years ago, we should have been able to detect them as soon as we invented the first telescope, because light would always be reaching us from those galaxies. However, the light from those galaxies has not always been reaching us. Rather, it was only in the late 1920s that this light came to us for the very first time. Hence, we now know that 14 billion years ago, the galaxies were 14 billion light years away from us. So why are they moving away from us if they were 14 billion light years away from us 14 billion years ago? Well, Edwin Hubble proposed a hypothesis called the Big Bang model, which claims that 14 billion years ago, there was an instant, a moment of creation, you might say, in which the galaxies, at a faster than light speed, separated themselves to be situated 14 billion light years away from each other. This event is called the Big Bang. After the Big Bang, the galaxies started traveling at a speed slower than that of the Big Bang, but still faster than light. The competing hypothesis was the steady state model, which was put forth by the physicist Fred Hoyle. In fact, he was the one who pejoratively coined the term Big Bang, only for the Big Bang proponents to embrace this pejorative. In 1964, the discovery of cosmic microwave background radiation, or CMB radiation, conclusively provided empirical support for the Big Bang model over the steady state model. The Big Bang model finally became the Big Bang theory. Now we have solid scientific evidence that 14 billion years ago, the galaxies repelled each other to locations that were 14 billion light years away from each other before beginning to travel farther and farther away from each other. The reason why young Earth creationists reject the Big Bang theory is not only because of James Ussher's chronology, but also because a literal reading of Genesis says that God created Adam and Eve 6 days after creating the heavens and the earth. Of course, the English word days might actually be a mistranslation of the Hebrew word yom, which can mean long periods of time. But this is what I mean by literal reading. The English word days is a literal translation of the Hebrew word yom that doesn't take into account that Genesis might actually be saying that God created Adam and Eve 6 eras, not 6 days, after creating the heavens and the earth. If you believe that God created Adam and Eve 6 eras after the formation of the heavens and the earth, then you can easily divide 4.5 billion years into 6 groupings, and then refer to each quantity of years as your own personally true, theologically declared era. However you decide to interpret Genesis, you have to accept the scientific evidence for the Big Bang Theory, because that evidence is how the world works. The universe and the Earth are not 6,000 years old, for it is actually the case that 14 billion years ago, the galaxies positioned themselves 14 billion light years away from each other, and 4.5 billion years ago, the Earth was fully formed. In the next lecture of Skepticism 101, I will discuss the long tradition of scientists who had disputed James Ussher's hypothesis long before we ever knew the true ages of the Earth and the universe. For now, let's dive into the Akkadian Empire's history for History 01.